All right. Hello.
Howdy, Jimbo. You want to get this started? You want to get this started off with an opening statement?
That's all right. Just let them ask questions, see what they want.
All right, let's go straight to Brent Zorman from the Houston Chronicle.
Jimbo, look forward to seeing you tomorrow. It's been too long, so appreciate the invite. Wanted to ask you about your quarterbacks. Would you mind talking about your top three quarterbacks and their strengths and also what they need to work on moving forward?
Well, they need to work on everything. And strengths are they're very competitive, very intelligent, have excellent physical ability running or throwing, and I think can lead this team. I mean, I think that in all three of those guys. So I think they're very intelligent guys who learn well, and then their weaknesses are they got to continue to do that each and every day, and the consistency level and the consistency with decision making. And then the other thing you got to learn, you got to remember a quarterback, and when you're young, it's very hard. Everybody else's screw ups, you got to clean up. You're like mama. When everybody makes a mess, it's your job to clean it up. And that when the great ones you don't even realize other people mess up because they clean it up so well. And that's something that our team has to realize, and they need to play better around these young guys because they're not ready to clean up after everybody. I mean, they're first time moms. So as I say, so they're needing to have everybody around them. Now, I think they're doing a really good job of it. I do when things go well. They have a really good feel for things. They're competitive, and they're doing a really good job of doing that, in my opinion, especially at this stage of their careers. But I think the guys around them need to step up to do a better job to allow them, because I think these guys are very good players, in my opinion, and I'm very pleased with their progress so far.
I know it'll happen when it happens, but do you have an ideal timeline on when you would like to name a starter?
Nope.
In terms of the other guys?
You'll know when you know. You'll know when you know.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
All right, let's go to Andrew Hattersley from Gig'em 247.
Yeah, Jimbo, I just wanted to ask you about the dead period getting lifted at the end of May and just what it'll mean to get visitors back on campus this summer.
Well, I think it's very big because a lot of these guys we have never seen. At least the last class, a lot you'd had some contact with, whether they were in camp or things like that. By canceling the camps and things a year ago, this new group of guys you've never been around. So I think it's very important for both sides, and I think it'll get back to some normalcy and how we're trying to do things and live a normal life in the recruiting world.
And are there things that you've learned maybe from the past year and ways you can market the program that you can still take forward going forward when the dead period?
I think you're always learning to market, but I think with social media today, I think that's become a huge part of it. I mean, the marketing system through social media and getting things out and your graphics and all those different things, I think are huge. And I think we knew that, but I think when you have to rely on them and that's the only thing you have to rely on, I think it magnifies it and you can find out how much you really can do.
Thanks a lot, Coach.
Thank you.
All right, let's go to Olin Buchanan from Texags.
Yeah, Jimbo, first of all, you guys staying pretty healthy through the spring so far?
No, very average. I mean, you got a lot of nicks and knacks and typical spring things.
Okay. Was there ever a time in your career where you were hesitant to play or start freshmen?
No.
Always been good with it. And
I never saw an age limit in the rule book.
Okay.
Best players play.
And finally, I'd ask, how much would not being here in the spring keep a guy like, or a freshman, a guy like Bryce Foster or anybody else from actually projecting to be a starter or having a chance to be a starter if you weren't here in the spring? I
don't think it hinders you, but I think guys that do that have a little bit of a leg up just because they understand terminology, they understand language. I mean, a lot of, like I say, a big part of those things are, and you can Zoom with guys and talk to guys and all those things, but just hearing it on an everyday basis is a new language. I think that's the biggest thing. And then how things operate and testing yourself for 15 practices, not having to wait till fall. But, listen, when you have two sports and do things what he's doing right now, just the other day, I believe he threw the shot 71 feet. I mean, that's probably the best in the country by far. He's got the number one disc and shot in the country. I mean, he's very talented. He should stay there and do that. There's no doubt. And what he does, and all those guys that played basketball or whatever sport they had and the things they did. So, but I mean, it doesn't stop. I've had a lot of guys come in like that and play. I mean, and be the guys that stay. But I mean, getting a jump definitely helps you. There's no doubt about that. But that's each individual is different.
You like guys that play multiple sports?
Love it. I think that's one of the biggest things we're doing wrong in our society today in athletics, not letting guys play multiple sports and letting them experiment in multiple sports and develop in multiple sports, because it develops you not only physically but mentally and competitively.
Thanks, Coach.
All right, let's go to Mike Lucas from KAGs.
Hey, Coach, I got two for you. First off, how has Kenny Green looked at left tackle throughout spring so far?
He's learning. He's getting better and better. He's going to good thing. He's going to get some good ends. So every time he thinks he gets real good, they can do some things, but he's working them too. So, I mean, he's a big presence. He's athletic. He's learning his thing. He's a very intelligent guy. And, I think he's having a good spring and he's learning at the same time and nowhere close where he can be. And that's a great thing because I still think he's playing very well.
And Coach, you always talk about the need for consistency in spring practice, especially building on the fundamentals and all that. So how consistent has this team been overall through the first 2.5 weeks?
I thought the first 2 weeks were really good. This third week, I thought we've drifted, but we put some more things in. We're doing some different things defensively, different things offensively. We put some more in. But I thought at the end of the first 2 weeks, I thought we were doing pretty well. I think we're going to get back to it here. And then, like I say, it's third week, you're banged, you're bruised. All of a sudden, you feel tired. So I say football doesn't start till you're 8, 10, 12 practices in, because everybody has that utopia world where you feel good, everything's good, and you're fresh, and then all of a sudden you find out real football starts after you've been here a while. So we got to get that mentality, and that's what I'm anxious to see. This team still has a ways to go, developing its own personality and identity.
Thanks, Coach.
Next up is Gabe Bach from Texags.
Yeah, Jimbo, how pleased are you with how the secondary is shaping up, in particular building depth there at corner and safety?
Solid. I think we've had some really good days, and I think we've had some days the offense has gotten them too. I thought we'd be a little more consistent than we are personally, but we're still doing a good job.
And if you'd mind commenting on a couple of FSU greats that's joined your staff here, Rashad Green on offense and then Antonio Cromartie on defense.
Antonio was here in Houston and working and wanting to get in coaching and head talks, and brings a wealth of knowledge, not only at that position, but defensively playing with some great coordinators, blitz packages, different things you do in the NFL, especially when he gets to third down and coverages and his expertise on, you're talking about a guy who led the NFL in interceptions. You're talking about a guy who wasn't just in the Pro Bowl, was first team all pro. So that wealth and knowledge, being able to have that is very good. And Rashad the same way. Rashad's the all-time leading receiver, yards, catches, on everything in Florida State history. And there's been some great ones that played there. And he was a 3-star guy. He wasn't the most highly recruited guy, but more big games, more big plays, understanding big situations and how to prepare, and wasn't a big guy to play in those moments. And I don't think there's a better example to set in front of our players to be able to handle big moments, big things, and also play against guys who were supposedly better than him. And all he did was own him for 4 years in the biggest moments of the year, and was one of the best people I've ever coached as far as a competitor and a human being. And I thought it'd be a great example. He wanted to get into coaching, and I thought it'd be a great addition. Plus, he knows the system. He knows how we do things. And I thought it'd be a natural fit.
Thanks, Jimbo.
Thank you.
All right, let's go to Zach Taylor from Bryan Broadcasting.
Yeah, Jimbo, obviously you guys are able to do a lot more than you were last spring. But in what ways are you still limited because of the pandemic? And are there things that you wish you could implement or do that you're just not able to?
Well, now I don't think the pandemic has really stopped anything. We have normal practices and things of that nature. Just in spring, your numbers and the way things are, and being able to make sure you get through all situations and educate. But you always want to be able to do and try to stay. As the big thing, how hard can you work and how healthy can you stay? And it's hard to do. And you got to learn. But part of that is learning how to practice. Practice is not an all-out game. It is learning to be controlled and how your techniques, but still staying physical with great, and being more cautious of the other guy to a certain point. It's not an all-out thing, and learning how to practice makes a big difference. And this team's still learning how to do that. And it comes from a good place the other way, but you got to learn how to respect each other and how to practice as you get better at the same time. Because when somebody doesn't do those things, it only hurts the whole team. It doesn't just hurt you or that individual guy.
With that being said, I know that you guys were making vaccines readily available to the players. Can you tell us about what percentage of the team's vaccinated now?
No, I can't, because that was their choice. And we brought in a doctor from the SEC who handles all those things on the national boards, and she explained they got to ask every question about what was positive about it, what was negative about it, any concerns they had. She answered. She did a phenomenal job and answering those questions beforehand. But that's their individual choice, and I'm not here to make them or do it, and that's them and their family's choice to what they do and how they do it.
Thanks.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, next up is Chuck Carlton for the Dallas Morning News.
Yeah, Jimbo, you're replacing 4 starters on the offensive line, and even with Kenyon there as a returning All-American, I guess. How difficult is it only just from a personnel standpoint, but from a chemistry standpoint and a familiarity standpoint in terms of, redeveloping that offensive line? And can you do it all in spring?
No, I don't think you can't do it in spring because you're going to have a lot of other pieces that you have to implement in that will be there in the fall. But you get a good basis of it, how things are, have a general idea what you can do or what you can't do or what needs really worked on in the offseason. And like I say, we don't have a large numbers of guys that we will in the fall. We signed a great group and our numbers will be really up. And I think that's one of the areas you have to continue to always have numbers. But the communication levels there in the lines of scrimmage are huge. I mean, there's multiple guys. And if one guy's one hand off, one hat placement off, one footstep off, it's drastic. And I think those things are very important, and they only come in time. You have to be able to work together. So we got to get as much out of that as we possibly can. But at the same time, it's a work in progress and done some really nice things. There's been some moments, you're going to be frustrated, but at the time, there's some really good growth and there's some really good players in there, in my opinion.
And different topic, the NCAA this week confirmed the one-time transfer exemption for everybody. How does that change things? I've heard some of your colleagues describe it as the Wild West out there right now.
It really doesn't, because everybody just come up with an excuse to transfer last time with the waiver, and they got through. So it's bad. All it did is eliminate the waiver process. So it's going to be still very similar, in my opinion.
All right, let's go to Tyler Shaw from KBTX.
Yeah, Jimbo, with your scrimmage tomorrow, what are you hoping to see from your team, and especially when you compare it to maybe the last time you guys scrimmaged a week ago?
I think it's the same thing. Coaches ain't on the field. You just get, or whether your drills, we do it in practice. Our practices, even we try to simulate those situations, not tackling and all that, but staying off the field. The biggest thing is not having, as I say, having your cheat sheet right there with you, as far as the coach right there in your ear telling you what to do and how to do it. You got to take a signal. You got to line up. You got to communicate with each other. That's the big thing. And then be able to function from the fundamentals of blocking, tackling, ball carrying, ball security, leveraging the ball, understanding situations. I mean, not being able to have to be told. I think that's the way you're taking away the cheat sheet and that, and then see their competitive nature and how they can do things and control tempos of the game and ups and downs of the game when nobody's there patting you on the butt, good, bad, and different. I think that's the big thing. You're out there in the real world by yourself, and I think that's the big things you find out in scrimmages.
Okay, let's go to Travis Brown, and then we'll finish up with Brent Zorneman.
Hey, Coach, just curious how you lost a lot of leaders, a lot of senior guys. How has this team gelled, and what is the chemistry like so far?
Yeah, I think it's still finding itself, and I think your leaders are still emerging. You have some leaders, I mean, other leaders are still emerging, and I think it's still developing its own personality and demeanor and competitive nature and leadership roles. I think those are not defined and usually never are at this time. Those are processes we're still going through as a team, and that's not for me to sort out. I mean, it's me to help manage, but at the end of the day, those are things that are managed by them.
And I know you have a kind of leadership council that you've talked about before. How many of those guys did you have to replace heading into the spring because of the guys that went out? And is it usually
majority of them? It's always that way. Generally, it's generally that way. There was a large majority of them.
All right,
but there's still enough significant guys still around.
Thanks, Coach.
All right, let's wrap it up with Brent Zorneman from the Houston Chronicle.
Jimbo, based on how much you like to get done this time of year, the off season, how frustrating was it a year ago that y'all weren't doing this, and how, I guess, grateful, appreciative, whatever you want to call it, that you are able to do it again this year with spring drills? And
I'm very appreciative, and I hope our players are too. And last year, I don't know if I was frustrated. It was just I was worried that we would ever even be able to play football. I think that's the biggest thing, even after spring ball. I think it went away once you realize that, okay, you need to quit worrying about and crying about spring and worry about, can you play in the fall? And then was that going to be possible for everybody involved? And I think that kind of lessened the blow, in my opinion, how things were done. But I think I hope they appreciate how much having spring ball helps them, because it's another chance for them to develop. It's just like it's going to class. It's taking exams. It's in the major you want. You come here to get an Aggie ring in your educational major, which is huge. It's the biggest thing you have. But right there, even with it, you're coming here to win championships, to win SEC championships, and playing pro football. And there's nothing wrong with having both. And this is class. This is testing time. This is pre-test. I mean, it's you developing your craft and developing that skill that God has blessed you with. So I hope they appreciate it, and I hope they take as much pride in it and what they do. And I think sometimes the urgency of that, guys don't understand that. And because at the end of the day, you only get one shot. Just, and you got 3 to 5 years to develop your craft in that window. And every time you get it, you better take advantage of it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, that's all the questions we have. Thanks, Coach. And that's a wrap. Thanks, everybody.